welcome to this, and this will be my review for Bound for Glory 2009, which happened tonight. So, yeah, let's start talking about this pay-per-view a little bit, shall we? This will probably be a long video. I'm going to warn everybody now, you've probably already seen the time. It's not so much of a rant, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things I want to touch on. We'll see if I do or not. I don't like writing things down because I feel like when I write things down, I actually forget to mention things because I forget to write things down I want to talk about, and it works a lot better if I just kind of just do it free thinking. So, there we go. But this might be long, might not be. Just depends on if I remember to talk about everything I wanted to talk about. But, I will say this. I didn't think this was a great Bound for Glory. This is probably the weakest Bound for Glory in a long time, probably. Probably you'd have to go back 2006, I would say. Probably. Maybe that. Not that it wasn't good, because it definitely was good. I thought it was pretty good. I just didn't think it was great, which I think Bound for Glory needs to be. And I haven't talked about this a lot for a while because I've just kind of given up on believing this about TNA. But TNA is in a different situation than WWE. WWE can go out and put on a bad pay-per-view, and it's not going to necessarily kill them. TNA can't really do that, and TNA needs to go out. I feel like I've talked about this ad nauseum at times. They have to go out and they have to put on great, or at the very least, good pay-per-views. When things just don't click and things don't work, it has to at least be an okay pay-per-view. And those have to be very, very few and far between. The vast majority of their pay-per-views need to be good to great, with probably most of them being great to very good. If not, I really don't see any point of them doing pay-per-views, because they definitely don't get the buy rates. I do think that if they continually did put on better shows and better pay-per-views where people wanted to see the shows because I thought, wow, I'm going to see a great show, at least I know that, they'd probably be more willing to buy the pay-per-view for just because they feel like, hey, this company's doing good, I actually want to support it type thing, and you probably get people that don't want to risk not being able to find streams to watch the shows as well. Even though finding TNA streams is much easier to find WWE streams, as WWE has gone totally Nazi on the stream sites. And I don't use the word Nazi lightly, because I, unlike a lot of people, actually know what the word means. But that's a totally different subject. Anyways, so I am going to talk about a lot of things during the show, because I think there's things on this show which, in my opinion, just show things that TNA continually does that I think hurts them. Even though there are things that, I think some things that they do that people would say, well, that's very TNA, but I think that it's things that they need to get away from. We started with the pre-show match. I didn't put this as actually part of the pay-per-view, but it was okay to good. Which was Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley versus Jay Lethal, Consequences Creed. The Pope, we come to find out, had a family emergency or something, wasn't going to be in the Ultimate X match, which probably may have been better, and I'll explain that later. So the winners, the tag team winners, were going to be allowed to enter the match, and we were going to get even more guys in the Ultimate X match, which I'm not too big on, I will admit, even though I said that, taking the Pope out may have been a good thing. But I'll get to that. I'll get to that. It's not really. But this was good. It was fast-paced, what you would expect from these guys. Still, probably wasn't as good as some people thought it was going to be, but, they didn't give it a lot of time. They just kind of threw it out there and got the crowd kind of going, and there we go. 2 3/4 stars I gave it. So, there we go. Then we started the match, or we started the pay-per-view. And we started off the show with the Ultimate X match, which was an awesome match, I will freely say, I felt, even though the structure was definitely not secured properly and looked like it was going to fall down at any moment, every time guys were climbing on it, and it was pretty much a spot fest. But it was, in my opinion, what a spot fest should be, which is just, just fun, exciting. They gave them time. It wasn't, it was what it was, and was really good. My thing about this is, and like I said, the Pope, because of a family emergency, is not in this match. But really, I don't think he should have been in this match anyways, because you finally have a guy in the X division who the fans are actually behind and probably would be willing to watch singles matches of, unlike a lot of the other guys in the X division where people want to see these multi-man matches, which are fine, but I think they do too many of them. And maybe the Pope was supposed to win here. I would hope that he was supposed to win here, because, like I said, he's probably the one guy within the current X division that people would be willing to watch singles matches, and you could probably put him in there with anybody in the X division, and people would want to watch the match. So I think that's a good thing. So hopefully they do that. But again, they do these multi-man matches. I think they start to lose their luster after a while because we see them so often. We don't see enough, I would say even tag matches, or maybe even do instead of doing these multi-man matches like this, like Ultimate X or the Scramble matches or all that stuff, doing just, 6-man X Division match, or doing, an 8-man Elimination X Division match, or something along that lines where you can still use all the guys, but you're doing them not in these weird, spot fests, with all this stuff going on, which is cool to watch, but like I said, it starts to lose its meaning after a while. But during the match, like I said, we saw, them hit all these crazy wild moves, and the structure definitely was not as secure as it should have been. And on top of that, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, Kaz, as Suicide, did maybe one of the stupidest moves I've ever seen anyone ever do on a major show. I've seen people do stupider things, or dumber things, which is not stupid, but dumber things on, indie shows, yard tarting, that sort of thing. But to do what they did on a major show, which was awesome and looked cool, except it also looked like Christopher Daniels had just broken his neck when they did it, is beyond me. I can't believe that somebody backstage okayed them doing this. Maybe they didn't. But it was pretty just amazing that happened. And in my opinion, did take away some of the match. Now, a lot of people bitched about the fact that the first ladder war, had all these dangerous spots and was crazy and all of this stuff. To me, this was probably even crazier in a lot of ways than the ladder war. It wasn't as good, but was just as crazy, and especially that spot, which was just insane. And not insane in a good way. It was just like, my God, did I just see that? I'm sure some people will say it was one of the greatest, and all this stuff, and will defend it and all of that. But it was stupid, and so there. So then from there we go to Sarita, Miss Wilde, Madison, Rayne, Velvet Sky, the beautiful people, who did come out with the very hot looking, as I told everyone it would be, she would be, I should say, Lacey Von Erich. Lacey Von Erich was sent to the back after she tried to, seduce in a comedic type way. The referees didn't work. They sent her to the back, so it was basically an even tag match. The match was better than I thought it would be. It was almost okay. Was a little too short. Was a bit sloppy. From there, we went to Kevin Nash and Hernandez versus Eric Young. Oh, let me talk about the Knockouts tag title match. This is another thing that, TNA has all of these titles. And one of the things that happens when you start creating titles, particularly when you create titles for acts or individuals, such as what TNA did with the Knockouts Championship, which was they created the title basically for the beautiful people. Now, they had no idea that the beautiful people would be what we see them now, because they didn't know Angelina Love would be gone, by all accounts. But this is why you have to be careful when you create them for a specific person or a specific group. Because what happens when either that something happens and that group isn't around anymore, such as we have now. When you create a title, in my opinion, you need to make sure that you have enough talent to be able to, make the title situation fun, to keep it fresh, that whole thing. I don't think they did a good job for that. So, you know, in my opinion, you know, the Knockouts title match or tag title match should not have been on this show. I don't know why it was on this show. I'm sure it was on there because they wanted, you know, so all the titles were on the show, that sort of thing. But really, I don't think so. You know, it was a bad idea when they started doing it, and maybe they'll build something out. And there's enough knockouts to where they could make something of it, but have to wait and see. Then we got the Legends title, Kevin Nash, Homicide versus Eric Young. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I was actually kind of enjoying the match. Didn't enjoy the ending. Eric Young, I mean, the ending makes sense, but it just came off just kind of like, wow, really? Really? Is that going to be the ending? Come on. It just wasn't that enjoyable, and, you know, I can see where it'll at least keep the stuff, the angle going on, but if this whole thing was supposed to help build up Hernandez, and for all of Vince Russo's faults, for all of his faults, the one thing that he definitely does get is you have to continually push young, fresh talent, or at least fresh talent, and you have to keep things fresh. That's one thing I would say about TNA right now, is they definitely need to maybe bring in some newer guys, because I think the roster is a bit stale at the moment, and I definitely think that they, you know, and hopefully, you know, they brought in the Pope. Apparently they're going to bring in Kennedy. If they bring in Kennedy, I know not everyone likes him, but I think at least that will freshen up the roster a little bit. And, you know, I just think they need to freshen up the roster just a little bit more than they have. But, you know, I don't think this did Hernandez any favors. I don't think this helped push Hernandez up any. I think this just made Hernandez look like another goof, which they've done a real good job of making him look like a goof. So, if anything, I think it helped push Eric Young a little bit, but I don't think anyone's really, you know, thinks Eric Young is the guy that they should definitely be pushing out of Hernandez and Eric Young. Even though Eric Young's probably the better wrestler, I think Hernandez is probably the guy most people would say would be more marketable. So, there is that. Then we had the tag team Full Metal Mayhem match. A British Invasion, Scott Steiner, Booker T. Really wasn't Scott Steiner, Booker T. It was really Scott Steiner. Versus Team 3D and Beer Money. Right away, they got rid of Booker T, pretty much writing him out, because apparently he's not going to re-sign with TNA. We're going to part ways. They kind of wrote him out, so it was basically Scott Steiner by himself. I know Scott Steiner will never see this, but I will say this. Scott Steiner busted his ass in this match, did a really good job, you know, did as good a job as he could do. Looked good, definitely came with his working boots on. I think outperformed both members of Team 3D, who I think, you know, they were in the match for a long portion of it, and I think it hurt the match in a lot of ways. British Invasion and Beer Money, you know, I think would have been better them teaming, you know, them having more to do in the match, and it just didn't seem like they had a lot to do. This match was very spotty, was brutal, but it just, you know, some of the table spots just came off kind of flat. Was good, but just not great, and I would say it was just good. Definitely, in my opinion, under-delivered from what I think a lot of people wanted to see, but it was a good match, but just not what you probably wanted to see. And, of course, with the dual title thing, just didn't come off very well either, which is kind of what I was scared of, so there was that as well. Then we had the Knockouts title match, ODB versus Awesome Kong versus Tara. This was going on really good. This probably would have been one of the best Knockouts matches in forever. And then they had Tara go out, get in a match with someone, get in a fight with someone they never explained who it was. You barely saw them get in a fight with them because the referee or the director either missed his cue or something funky happened. Tara went to the back. You never understood why. The announcers never explained why. So it was ODB versus Awesome Kong. It totally killed the momentum of the match. Even though even the ending was actually kind of worked. But this totally the match just fell flat. And the ending was actually pretty good. Continued kind of the story with Awesome Kong. So that'll be interesting. So there was that. Let's see. Then we had the main matches. Now, keep in mind that I came on here, I did a little video on my phone, and then I did a video explaining what I said on my phone. And I said pretty much what happened. That not that these matches would be bad, but that I wasn't excited about them, and I didn't think that they would deliver anything that would be great. Now, a lot of people argued that the main event would, because it would be, you know, career versus title. Well, we didn't get career versus title. We got, well, if Sting loses, he might retire. He might call it quits. We really don't know, even after the show. And so there was all of that. But I hate to say I told you so, but in my opinion, I told you so. I'm sure some people will disagree and say, no, there was some greatness on here. I didn't see it. So convince me, folks. But I thought a lot of this was good. I didn't think any of it was great. You had Bobby Lashley versus Samoa Joe, which I was enjoying, I was really liking, and then they did the finish where Bobby Lashley choked out Samoa Joe, and it came off very flat because it went far too fast, far too quick. You know, you would think that they would work it up to where, similar to, you know, Austin versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania, where, you know, Austin wouldn't give up, fought, and finally had to, you know, the referee had to call it because he was out. You would think that that's what they did. That's not what they did. The finish just did not work for me. I thought it was a good match. I really did. I was really enjoying it up to that point. The ending just for me. You know, again, I don't know why they signed Bobby Lashley. I still don't understand why they signed Bobby Lashley. As I said, you know, none of these matches I thought were great. I think you could have worked some different things around, got the same types of things you got out of this stuff, and it would have came off better. But that's not what we got, so there you go. Then we got Mick Foley versus Abyss in the Monster Ball match. This was wretched. I know some people won't agree, but this was... I'm a fan of hardcore wrestling. I like hardcore wrestling. I don't like it when you make it. There's two ways. Let me explain this. There's two ways, in my opinion, to do hardcore wrestling where it is entertaining. You either do A, where it is very over the top, very cartoonish. Now, for the most part, if you do that, the best you're going to hope for, in my opinion, is an entertaining match. If you're really going to get into it, it's probably a good match. And that would have been fine with Mick Foley and Abyss. Or you do the brutal bloodbath, you know, true, you know, brutal, hardcore bloodbath that's hard to watch. Those, usually, you get great matches out of. We didn't get that, and we definitely didn't get the other. We're going to use a lot of the elements because that would make things look funny, except we're going to try to make them look brutal. It never worked. It didn't work when Abyss took on Macinas, and they did the same thing in that stupid barbed wire match. It didn't come off good, in my opinion. They did the exact same crap here. You had Abyss take this bump off a ladder, or I shouldn't say a ladder, off one of the, I guess, part of the stage, through another part of the cardboard stage, which broke away. It looked very fake. You had them start using barbed wire, except you saw Abyss having to blade after you getting hit with the barbed wire. That sucks. If you're going to use barbed wire, use the real barbed wire so you don't have to blade. So there's actually blood, and it looks real, and it is real, and it's brutal, and people, you know, are like, oh my god, and I was just like, dear God, you know, it was just not good. And then you added the whole Stevie thing. You had the freaking taser spot, which just was like, what is this? You had Daphne. God love Daphne. You know, anyone that's watched my vids knows I'm a big fan of Daphne. She's one of the few reasons why I watch TNA, because I am a huge fan of hers. I've been a fan of hers since WCW. I will say this. This is the second table spot she's done for TNA in which the director has missed the table spot. If they're not going to take the effort to catch the table spot, she shouldn't be doing the fucking table spots, even though I guess this really wasn't a table spot. This was her basically going through a barbed wire table-looking thing. Keep in mind, folks, this should have been, if you want to see what this match should have been, go back, watch One Night Stand 2, watch the tag match with Foley and Edge and Dreamer and Funk and Beulah and Beulah and I can't think of her name, and Lita. Watch that and go, wow, that's what this should have been. It's not what it was. This was bad. The fans were chanting, "This is awesome, that was awesome," all of this stuff. I couldn't disagree more. That was bad, bad, bad hardcore wrestling. I don't even mean like CZW stupid bad. I just mean bad. It came off cheesy and fake and wow, was not good. Finished. Then we had Matt Morgan versus Kurt Angle, which again, Kurt Angle went out there and had a pretty good match with Matt Morgan. I thought it probably went a little too long. They went out there and tried to have a long match, which was fine. But one of my problems with Matt Morgan, or the way TNA has someone needs to take Matt Morgan aside and tell Matt Morgan he needs to wrestle like a big man. For whatever reason, he tries to wrestle like a regular guy, even though he's 7 foot. He needs to actually wrestle like a big man. Use big man moves. Have Kevin Nash show him, hey, do this instead of that sort of thing. He's better. He's definitely much more athletic than Kevin Nash. There's definitely things he can do that Kevin Nash would never be able to do. But at the same time, he also needs to utilize his size, make it look like he's bigger than everybody else, make him look like a monster. There was elements where we didn't see that. He just looked like a big wrestler is what he looked at. And, look, a great example would be Mike Awesome. Even when Mike Awesome was in like WCW or WWF, and it was evident that he wasn't this big, bad monster because he was only, 6'2" or 6'3" or whatever. And you had guys that were 6'6" or just as big as him. Yet, he knew how to wrestle like a big man. So even if he wrestled a guy that was the same size or maybe even a little bigger than him, that didn't wrestle like that, he looked like the big, bad monster. Rhino was used the same way. Rhino isn't a big, imposing guy. It's the way that you act. It's the move that you do. That sort of thing. Matt Morgan really doesn't do that, so there was, that's one thing about Matt Morgan that really bugs me. This was a good match, like I said, though. My only problem was that Matt Morgan didn't go over. I think if you would have put Matt Morgan over, some people say, oh, but Kurt Angle needed to go over. He really didn't. You just had him beat, or not beat, you just had him go to a draw with your world champion, with AJ Styles. You just had that happen, which means that he is on the same pace, on the same level as AJ Styles. Matt Morgan beats Kurt Angle, that means he's right there, maybe even better. He can even say, I'm better than both of these guys. You just added him into the world title picture. All of that works. I also wasn't too big on the handshake. It looks like they're going to, maybe Kurt Angle face. I don't know. It was kind of weird, the handshake thing. So there was that. Then we had AJ Styles versus Sting. I think AJ did the best that he could. I think Sting definitely tried to go out there and had the best match he could. I wouldn't call it great. It definitely didn't have the drama, and the finish fell completely and utterly flat. Still a good match, but it's still, like I said, just fell very flat and didn't come off nearly as good as it needed to be. You definitely could have done a lot of things different on this pay-per-view, and they would have came off bigger. Imagine, for example, if this had been, Sting saying, I'm going to take on AJ, and if I can't beat AJ and have Sting as the title holder, and have Sting take on AJ, and AJ beat Sting at the pay-per-view, and you have the big giant celebration, and you have the big giant thing that you had at the last pay-per-view, and then during all of that, AJ stops, tells everyone to get out of the ring, invites Sting back, and basically have Sting do the exact same promo, would have came off 1,000 times better than how it came off just with this, and it ended with a freaking splash, which just came off just like just like I said, just utterly flat. This pay-per-view showed a lot of what's good about TNA and also what's bad about TNA. Also showed, you didn't see a lot of bad Russo stuff. Some of the stuff was completely overbooked. You had too much stuff going on. You had, that sort of thing going on, but it wasn't classic bad Russo. And as I said, one thing you can say about Russo is he does know how that you need to push young guys and have fresh faces. But, are we going to see the end of the Main Event Mafia now? You would think that you would actually do that on a pay-per-view with, the TNA peak guys, the young guys finally beating and going over the Main Event Mafia, something like that. Instead of the Main Event Mafia just disintegrating and not becoming anything. But overall, I thought this was a pretty good pay-per-view. I would give it, I'd give it a 7.75. I didn't think it was great. I do think that there was a lot of good on it. I think there wasn't much bad, and I think even the bad stuff on it wasn't horribly bad, except for, you know, the Abyss Angle or the Abyss Foley match, which I just shook my head at. I really did. It just amazes me that, you know, that stuff goes on. And, you know, and we still have the same problems we have with, you know, the production truck. Somebody needs to fire the guy in the production truck. Either that, or he needs to fire people in the production truck that aren't, you know, they continually miss spots. They're continually... Chase Sea-Dude, when we're watching it, brought up a very good point. They follow the action instead of anticipating the action, and so you're always missing something when something happens. And it hurts the product. Also the fact that it seemed to me like they definitely were not going to show the hard side of the arena, which makes me wonder that how many of those seats were empty on the hard side, and that they were just really trying not to show that side of the arena. That seems like another thing that TNA often tries to do. I don't know why they worry about that when they're in the impact zone, but when they're on the road, I guess I could understand that. But still, I mean, you just can't be missing stuff like that. Just the way I see it. Again, not a great pay-per-view. Definitely not what I think TNA needed, but wasn't bad either. I'm sure people that love TNA and really like TNA really like this pay-per-view, and the people that didn't aren't going to like it that much. But still, it's kind of the way I see it, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one, and